live. The doors
Oh,
are. Hello, Substack. Hello, people of the internet. Welcome to this is the What's Wrong with Richard Rushfield. What's wrong with Richard Rushfield with Beth Lapides? I'm delighted to have our guest today is someone I have no longer relationship in my journalism career than with our guest today because the very first interview I did as a journalist was with today's guest. And so if something happens to me immediately after this interview, you will be the first and last interview
oh my God.
of my career. I have another one scheduled in about 3 hours. So if something goes wrong on the way to it, but Beth Lapides is, um, in addition to a prominent Substacker now, and writer and author, and what are you, guru? What is the official term?
Oh, I don't know. Some people have called me the godmother of alternative
The God,
comedy.
well, that you are. So I just I just want to take you back to intro, your illustrious history and place in the alternative comedy firm, and we're not going to just get stuck in the past, although I could talk about that forever. But so in I think it was like 1992, about the years kind of run together. I had a friend who said to me, "Do you want to go to see this comedy show?" And I said, "Of course not. Why would I do that?" Because comedy at that time I thought of as Andrew Dice Clay doing these poems in stadiums, and Gallagher, and that's what comedy was. But she twisted my arm, and I came in. I don't think it's too much to say that my life was changed
Oh,
by that very first night. That I was so blown away. Not just the I don't know I guess we got to describe what alternative comedy was. So in this time when it was when comedy was this thing done in stadiums at like maximum volume, um,
yeah.
alternative cabaret was in this basement of this club on Robertson, this tiny little intimate room, and you had these people who were hilariously funny, and they went up. And was it the rule that you could never say anything that you'd said before, or
That
how?
was the sort of loosest rule. Well, thank you so much. And,
Yeah,
there was a lot of arm twisting to get people there at the beginning because everybody did say, even my friends, I'd say, come see, they'll stand. No, 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 no. I hate that.
yeah,
I said, it's different. The rule was, it was basically don't repeat, but it was mostly be in the now, which, essentially meant you could say something you'd said before if it was part of the story of where you were going. It wasn't like you could never say it, but it was, besides the stadium stuff that you were talking about, one of the other things that was happening was in the clubs, which were smaller, was still these very tight 10 sets
right.
where people were trying to get their hold, the deal for the show, for the stand. It was a Seinfeld path, and that was what I was really allergic to. Those two things, following Andrew Dice Clay at the Comedy Store was a turning point in my life, and then having to work, in clubs where you could never say a new thing. So those things, the of Uncabaret was unhomophobic, unxenophobic, unmisogynist, and
Mhm.
unhacky. Those were the
It eventually came to be called alternative comedy. That term didn't exist then, but it was. The idea was people got up, and mostly they talked about what had happened in the last week. They just
yeah.
or the thoughts that came to them, and it was the idea was you didn't have to be funny, but it ended up being the funniest show ever. But that was never the goal to be funny. I should
Well,
list.
can I say it was the goal to be funny, but it wasn't. We didn't have the laugh meter running.
Right.
So you didn't have, the goal wasn't to be funny every 7 seconds.
Yeah.
There wasn't that kind of, we're trying to sell drinks and you just got to keep that motor running. So the goal was, you could do a much longer setup. One of the problems with comedy is if the setup is super simple, how great can the payoff be?
Right.
So we really gave breathing room to setups, and our audiences, who I am so grateful for, and were a big part, besides the comedians, of how on Cabaret happened. Had the patience to sit for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, to then get this amazing story that was hilarious. They didn't have that. So that was a big part of it.
So, and we should list, for those who don't know, the comedians who were part of this, which is kind of an incredible group, considering. But I mean, they seemed incredible at the time,
Yeah,
but they
they did. And
they
then, yeah.
Bob
Um,
Odenkirk, David Cross, Patton Oswalt, Janine Garofalo, Margaret Cho, who
Kathy Griffin,
Kath-
Bob Goldthwait, Andy Dick,
Kath-
God bless, Judy Toll and Taylor Negron. Uh,
Greg Barrett,
oh yeah, Greg Barrett,
the original Dana Gould, was
Dana Gould, amazing. Warren Hutcherson, John Rigi, yeah,
yeah.
Michael Patrick King, Meryl Marco.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
goes
mean,
on.
it was incredible, and just incredibly honest and direct, and
Oh, Julia Sweeney. Did we say Julia
Yeah,
Sweeney?
Julie Sweeney,
Big
right?
part of it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Honest, direct, and was a really, one of the things about stand up and comedy in general is, if you're not going to take risks, how good can so a lot of risk taking. And one word I would like to say is, especially here we are doing this conversation, it's conversational comedy. There
Yeah.
wasn't a conversational uh vibe in the culture at that point.
Yeah, it was all so programmed, and so I mean, it shook me up. It shook me enough that this was a moment when I was deciding I was going to become a journalist, and I had a appointment at Los Angeles Magazine to talk to an
Ugh.
editor, and this was the first article I pitched in journalism, and unfortunately for you. It was the first article I'd ever written, and I didn't actually know how to write an article at the time. So I think I spent about a month. I did so I must have did dozens of interviews. I spent a day driving Kathy Griffin around shopping and all that. And I turned in something that was thousands and thousands of words, and it ran as one paragraph in the
Oh
end.
my
So
god.
I got
Well,
paid.
that's show business right there.
Yeah, I got paid $20, which was very exciting. I Years later I did another piece which was
Much
longer
longer.
and
Yeah.
no, it changed everything for me. Um, and it changed everything for Hollywood, really, because this was at the same time that sort of and it was a kind of a parallel to there was the independent film movement that Hollywood had become very grandiose and very kind of conservative and very difficult to change and do new things
Yeah.
within Hollywood. And then via Sundance, you had this independent film revolution that shook up film and changed.
And I think if
Where
I could bring in also in music, we had, the grunge music scene was also happening, very parallel.
Yeah, all very connected. And in comedy, as we had this very kind of programmed, formal, conservative in format, and these people came in and made comedy something much more direct and honest and authentic. And I think when you look at where these talents gone to, and all the people that came after that, I mean, I think 5 or 6 years later, everybody was doing alternative comedy.
Yeah, I
That
know.
was the
Or at least not. Yeah.
dominant style of comedy,
Yeah.
and we're still kind of living off that today. It's still, if someone got up and did, if you saw a set from Uncabaret at the time, it would feel completely at home today. If you saw Andrew Dice Clay at that moment, you would think this was from another universe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, how did that feel to change? Now that I've made a whole speech about your,
I appreciate it, and it makes me, yeah, it's always nice to hear how
but
important.
at the time, did you feel like, okay, we're changing things?
Yeah.
The what?
It felt really, it felt kind of scary. There was it definitely felt like, there was a lot of pushback. I heard a lot from people who were not part of it. Why did why does she get to do the why, a lot of who gave them permission, you
Right.
know? And I was like, how did I and then I became a gatekeeper suddenly, and I was like, how did I become the man? How did that happen?
Well, it was. I mean, it was such a difference from sort of the club comedy at the time that I think the club comics took it like as an attack on them
But
almost.
what was interesting was a lot of the people in the show were club comics, and they were just club comics who were bristling at the bit, who had so much more than they could give. I think it's important to say that a lot of these, some people didn't come out. There was different groups. One group really came out of the groundlings. That would be Judy Toll was the first, but then brought along Kathy and Julia and uh, Mike McDonald, Tim Bagley. They all came from the groundlings. So, but there were stand-ups that were like Patton and Dana and Greg, um,
Yeah,
Janine.
who could all do great at the Comedy Store if
We're
they.
all working at the
Yeah.
we're all working in the clubs, but we're so frustrated, so it was like there were people sort of kind of doing both. And so w- we did feel, I mean, there was a huge article beside, along with you.
Along with my
uh
paragraph.
Chuck Crisafulli wrote a big piece for the LA Times that came out on a Friday above the fold in the calendar section. And if you weren't there at the time, you don't realize, because we have so much media now, what that would
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
And we had been really struggling to fill the room and, get people there. And then all of a sudden it was like, lines up, what that would mean in Hollywood, suddenly feeding frenzy and
Yeah.
audience. But
And
that article was really, a new breed of comics. I mean, it really called it out, and we really did know that it was a different thing, that it wasn't like other comedy, that it was different. And partly because people like you in the audience, um, just people who wouldn't go see. I have so many people over the years like, I came to Uncab and I loved it, so I went to
yeah.
see other comedy, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
And like you say, it's more permeable now. There's and Uncabaret's also changed over the years. So,
So
um,
tell me about Uncabaret continues, and you continue to host, and you continue to have amazing comics performing there. Like, tell me about the evolution across the
the
decades.
evolution, has always been. I've tried to close the show a few times. In fact, I think one of your articles was goodbye to this show, and then I
That's right.
couldn't stay gone.
Well, you were
Um,
the place was Luna
the
Park where
place
it was held
closed, and then
was
we went
shutting
to
down.
HBO. We've always done residencies. It's always been that. We've always looked for home, and at various times, I did once take 2 years off, and got pulled back in. But
Yeah.
one of the things about Uncab, it's always been about meeting the moment. So as the moment has changed, because Uncabaret's real mission is meet the moment. When the moment changes, the submission changes. If
Right.
Without saying we're submissive. Um,
Mhm.
so now, for instance, at a time when I feel like, the where we were really like, kind of, rebellious, and now I feel like the thing that's needed is a hug. It's a warmer show. But we still maintain, storytelling. It's still a safe place for risk taking. The audiences are still super smart. It's still, I mean, I don't understand this thing where safe space is a pejorative term. I've really always tried to maintain that so that comedians could take risks and feel free to do new material. And I've always tried to create that. I think when I think about the future of comedy, the present and the future, three F words come to mind, which is failure and these, safety to fail and have failure be embedded into stand up is really critical for stand up to be great. Um, Friendship, I think, is a really huge piece of it, and that was a big part of the original show. It was friends bringing in friends. We had a
Mm.
core group, and then Bob was like, "You should have my friend Andy," and then Andy was like, "You should have Scott Tom." Everybody just kept bringing their friends. It was a friend group, and then we would look for people, and the doors. I've always said, the room's crowded, but the door's open, and people have come in that way. So I once heard Sting say, all music is about sex, that it's not if you're selling sex, it's what kind of sex are you selling. And it occurred to me that comedy was about friendship.
Hmm.
And really, you were selling friendship, that the comedians you like are generally the comedians that you want to be friends with. You wish you were friends with them.
Yeah.
And there is that feeling. And I think right now, in a world where loneliness is such an enormous factor, the loneliness crisis is real. And I saw on Drudge the other day, a third of Americans are having an existential crisis. And I just thought, this is the world that we're in. So I think, the
Why?
freedom.
What's wrong with the other 2/3 that they're
That
not?
was
Like,
exactly
what?
my thought.
They're-
We are the same person. That was my thought. Exactly.
What they just
Maybe
they're
they don't only
they just
one
think,
third.
oh, all right, another Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, maybe only one third knows what the word existential means. I don't know. um, and then I think freedom. So those are the three things that I think we, continue to try to, serve and develop and say where I'm not quite as strict as I was about not saying things. People maybe tell a story again, because I do think the audience, there needs to, it's a kind of relief. But like during COVID, meeting the moment meant doing a Zoom show. Meeting the moment means doing different things at different times. So we continue to do that.
Are there people who the honesty that you give out on stage and um that the great performers of it gave out on stage, that they would come up, and often they have had, as anyone would in over the course of years, they had really terrible weeks, and and bad things happened, and they would talk about that. I mean, I remember very emotional sets where you're coming to a comedy show and you're talking about, death in the family, or what have you, and they're very, without time to process it and
Yeah.
package it and put it and come up with a good punchline. You're just like, who are the people who can do? I couldn't do that. So who are the people who can do that and people who can't?
Well, that's a good question. Famously, pain plus time equals comedy. So, how bad it is always a question. And it's a muscle you develop. You start to develop it the same way you can process a ton of information. Everybody can't do that. Um, so, I think people who really understand their own voice and their own, how to say this, where they're coming from in a story, it's easier to reveal more in the story if you understand your, I don't want to say character, but if you understand who you are in that
Mm,
story, you understand your own way of telling stories, it becomes easier to process the material. It looks like therapy, but it isn't therapy, of course, and uh, so there becomes a way of being vulnerable to an audience without going too far, that helps an audience feel safe and helps you feel safe.
mm,
There's needs to be discovery on stage for it to feel truly alive. It's that thing. There's I saw a comedy special I really loved a few years ago, and I told a friend about it, and then he went to see the person live, and I said, "How was it?" He said, "Oh, it's just the same as this thing. I mean, it's just exactly the same, word for word." So you don't want that one. To me, that's what you don't want. You
yeah.
want people who can find the new words and find the new stories. Um, So the people who can do that are really, it is a certain type of comedian I'm always looking for, is somebody who has a lot of new stuff all the time. Not like somebody, people will approach me, I have a good story. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about your good story. I care about, do you have a point of view that, like, month after month after month, you're going to be able to come up with new stuff.
Um, it's that, I mean, it's a real talent to do that and be. 'Cause I think about a quote I heard from an interview with Philip Roth. I heard before
Mm.
his death, of course, where they asked him, "Is writing still hard for you?" And he's like, "Yes, writing is horrible and it's very hard.
The
It's
only thing
awful."
harder than writing is not writing for a
Yeah.
living.
Well, he said that, but the thing that's changed is I after all these books, I know what my voice is, so I kind
Yeah.
of know where I can go and know where I can't go. So
Yeah.
I can I steer it to I'm not hitting my head against the wall in places where my voice won't take me. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in a sense, it's like a car you know how to drive or something like that.
yeah.
It's so, that's a very you kind of thing. You like, you start to also live your life in a way where you understand, oh, this is as it's happening, you experience it, not removed, but you're experiencing, you almost sort of feel like, oh, yeah, this is a thing. And it might not make it any better, but you're experiencing it and you're noticing differently as you live. You One of the great gifts of being a writer or journalist, you just experience your life in a deep way as you look for material as you live, which is different than living for material. I don't want people to think, I'm not saying that at all,
No.
but
So tell me about you. So now you teach and you creativity. Tell me about your
well, I
work.
started out, of course, teaching comedy and storytelling because people wanted to do Uncabin. There was nowhere to learn it, and okay. And then now it has evolved over the years. I became interested in like in a way, a bigger challenge and a bigger piece of it, which is creativity coaching. And I work with people over a longer period of time, on a transformation. So you want to become you're a painter who wants to be showing more, or you are blocked, or you need to get your book done, or many different kinds of changes. And I call it the infinite creator because of this little infinite, as you choose projects, which is something I love helping people do, and then you do the project, it changes you, and then you choose different projects, and this little infinity loop of evolvement. The work changes you, you change the work. And to me, it's so miraculous to be involved in that, for myself and then with other people. The word creativity comes from a word that means to grow. It doesn't mean to make. So though we express it as making things, we do it as we do it and we grow. And that is the nature of creativity. So that's what I do now. And I do it in a lot of forms. I do it in groups, one-on-one, I do VIP, and, a lot of different ways. I do the Substack. But also I keep, as I continue my own work, it has been really exciting to get into understanding the creative process and being able to articulate it for people and being able to really help. A lot of it does come from Uncab, because one of the skills of being a great stand-up is being able to name the moment. You were literally the moment in the room. That's one thing you loved when you were there. People just in the moment and being able to say it, and the moment in the week and the moment in the year, being able to really be in the now. And I think as I work with people too, being able to help people name the moment they're in their work and in their life. And a lot of times people come in and they're trying to do a project that doesn't suit their particular life moment or the world moment. So, it's always, as this is true in movies and TV and why me, why now? It's always why me, why now, when you're looking at projects. And that's what I help people with.
Do you feel like it? I mean, there's a level of the acting class instruction where it's sort of vocational thing. Do you think of this as like vocational or how to get ahead as a writer or whatever there is, or is this sort of is creativity a therapeutic practice?
Oh, No, I think I mostly I work with mostly professional, professional creative people. I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody should enjoy creative process, but that's not my
Yeah.
practice. Isn't
Yeah.
working with people.
You had a great piece at the beginning of the year about 5 ways to think about the new year, and now, um, and I want to, with the year half over, I wanna bounce those 5, off you. So here were the 5 things that you said people should do and look at, to think about 2026,
Okay.
which, as you noted, in numerologically is
Uh-huh.
a 1 year because
Uh-huh.
2 plus 2 plus 6 equals 1. So um, you started with burnt offerings. Tell me about burnt offerings.
Oh my God, Richard, I don't remember what I wrote.
I'll read you. What are you freaking done with? Write it on a piece of paper or a bay leaf,
Ah,
toss
yeah.
it in a fire, bonfire, fireplace, a candle works. Try to be honest. None of it. So it was about letting
Uh,
go. I think of
oh
things.
yeah, that is so hard because we sometimes get 3 months into something, or like we were saying at the beginning before we turned the camera on, doing these things, these alone. We've both tried to do them alone, and you just
Yeah.
go, it didn't work. I don't want to do that anymore. People sometimes get really stuck in doing this something just because they started, and it's really liberating to let go. You see people, I'm just going to keep bringing it back to comedy. One of the great things is to see somebody in the middle of something on stage, somebody who's really has a lot of confidence, and just be like, no, moving on.
Do people ever come? If I were to come sit down with you, I would say so. I've been a writer now for 30 years. Like
Mhm.
apparently, I figured out how to do something, but my process is like killing me every day.
Ah,
And
yeah.
can I? Is it too late to like get a new process? Because I can't believe that I feel like I figured out for myself the hardest possible way to write and most stress inducing, and I've been living like that for 30 years. And is there an easier way for me to approach this?
Yes. Oh, yes, that is the kind of conversation I have with people all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do it. Look, call me up. Well, let's talk. I'd love to help you.
I would love to. My process is basically have 15 projects going on at any given time and bounce between them for like 5 seconds each. And then like when something is overdue, have a nervous breakdown and then just sort of force one of them to the finish line
Yeah,
at that.
that does sound excruciating. I mean, part of that would be, I don't know if you want to do this in front of people, and I
No,
know.
we're all friends here. They can hear.
Oh, okay. The what you've described as somebody who I'm gonna guess you're not a solo worker, and just working on one thing would never be right for you, and I would never suggest that. But limitation, boundaries is a word that I would bring up here. There's a triangle of momentum that I've developed, which is boundaries, actions, and team at bats, and if you don't have enough boundaries around you're very action. You have no problem with taking a lot of action. You're always in motion and in action. You've been amazing.
Unfortunately.
But boundaries is something I think you could work on, and trying to figure out which of the projects you could let go of as they even begin, and then priorities. So boundaries and priorities, I think, would be something I would work with you on.
So the problem, and I'm sorry to get too into my own,
No, let's do it.
so the minute I am like conscious of I am working on this project and now I know what this is, like
Mhm.
I understand this project, then I'm instantly bored of it and want it out of my life at
That's
that
so
point.
interesting you bring that up, because that's something I have been writing about this week. The idea that this week's Substack talks about uncertainty. And when I was reinventing my life about, 15 years ago, it was so uncertain. I wrote on my mirror, I love uncertainty. That's where God, there's more God there. And I didn't know if I believed it, but I wanted to believe it. And I have come to understand that uncertainty, as painful as it is also the place where the mystery and the magic and the miracles can happen. So what you're expressing to me is once there is no uncertainty and once there is everything known, you're not interested.
Precisely.
And so I would say, look for places to not lock down, maybe look for places where you're precipitously locking down, where you're precipitously making decisions, and maybe then diminish the time between what's known and the end. Maybe you can shorten that period. Maybe once it's known, it's really done. And then this period between being known and finishing could be shorter, or you're deciding about finishing too soon. Those would be the two discussions to have.
That is brilliant and excellent. You've gotten the heart of my difficulties in no time. Or I could just retire would be another
That wouldn't be good for any of us.
approach.
We would not like that. We need you. You're amazing. I just want to sing your praises.
Well, you
Your work has really, sheds light. You're so perceptive, and you've really shifted the way we talk about entertainment. And I'm really grateful for your work.
Well, thank you very much, Beth. And as I say, I honestly I don't know if I ever would have become a writer if I wasn't a writer the first time I went to the show, and if it weren't for how much the show affected me and changed me. So, uh,
That's
thank you for everything. So Beth Lapides has been our guest. The Infinite Creator is her Substack. The Uncabaret is her show.
We have a
Uh,
show this Friday for anybody watching,
who's
by the way. We're at
who's where and with who?
It's at El Cid in Silver Lake, Los Angeles. And on the show, we have Byron Bowers. If you want to talk about risk taking, Jackie Cation,
Oh, I
amazing.
love her.
Alec Mappa, incredible storyteller, Daniel Webb, and Jamie Bridgers.
Uh, a a a great cast there, a great lineup. Everybody, please. What time does that start?
We shall start at 7. Doors at 6, show at 7. You're home by like 9:30.
Wow, look at that. That you're talking my language now. Well, everybody, you will not be sorry going to the
That's very
cabaret.
sweet.
And I promise, if you haven't been before, it won't be the last time you go.
We need to do an Uncabaret Ankler like co-event.
I would love that.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
That'd be
Thank you so much for having me. Let's do it again.
We absolutely will. I'd love to have you back frequently.
Love it.
As a recurring. Thanks so much, Beth.
Thanks, Richard. Talk to you
Take care.
soon.
Bye bye.
Bye for now.